I was standing in my kitchen that Tuesday morning, knife poised over a beautiful ruby-red grapefruit, the same breakfast I'd enjoyed for over 40 years, when my doctor's words suddenly echoed in my ears. "Harold, that medication you're on? It could be interacting with certain foods in dangerous ways." My hand froze midair. Could this innocent fruit, this daily ritual of mine, actually be harming me? I'm Harold Jenkins, 73 years young, and after spending nearly 5 decades as a nutritionist and the last 15 years navigating my own health challenges, I've discovered something that shocked me to my core. Some of the healthiest fruits, ones we've been told all our lives to eat more of, can actually be dangerous for those of us over 60, especially if we're taking certain medications. And I'd bet my morning coffee that no one has warned you about this. I know what you're thinking. Really, Harold? Fruit is dangerous now? What's next? Is sunshine bad too? I had the exact same reaction. After all, we've had an apple a day keeps the doctor away, drilled into us since childhood. The idea that something as natural and wholesome as fruit could be harmful seems almost heretical. But what I'm about to share with you changed everything for me and for hundreds of my clients. In the next 20 minutes, I'll reveal 6 crucial truths about fruits that many doctors don't discuss, including 5 specific fruits that could be silently interfering with your medication, disrupting your blood sugar, or creating dangerous health complications right now. This isn't just academic for me. 3 years ago, I experienced a frightening episode that landed me in the emergency room. The culprit? A dangerous interaction between my heart medication and a fruit I'd been eating every single morning. My blood pressure had dropped so low that I passed out while walking my golden retriever Rusty. If my neighbor Elaine hadn't been gardening nearby, well, I might not be here talking to you today. So please stay with me until the end of this video. I promise that what I'm about to share could quite literally save your life, or at the very least help you avoid some serious health complications. By the time we're finished, you'll know exactly which fruits to avoid, which safer alternatives to enjoy instead, and most importantly, how to talk to your doctor about potential food-drug interactions that they might have overlooked. Let me start with the biggest revelation that changed everything for me. Grapefruit isn't just a fruit. It's a powerful drug amplifier that can turn a safe medication dose into a dangerous or even lethal one. For decades, I started every morning the same way. Half a grapefruit with a sprinkle of brown sugar and my morning medications. I thought I was doing everything right. After all, grapefruit is low in calories, packed with vitamin C, and was part of every heart-healthy diet I'd ever recommended to my clients. When my doctor prescribed blood pressure medication, I never imagined there could be any connection to my breakfast ritual. But here's the shocking truth. Grapefruit contains compounds called furanocoumarins that can dramatically increase the potency of many medications by blocking an enzyme in your intestines that normally breaks down these drugs. This doesn't just enhance your medication slightly, it can multiply its strength by 3, 5, or even 10 times. Imagine taking 10 pills instead of 1. That's effectively what can happen in your bloodstream. I discovered this the hard way. I remember that morning vividly. The sun was streaming through my kitchen window, catching the ruby-red flesh of my grapefruit as juice dripped down my fingers. The familiar tart-sweet taste was refreshing as always. An hour later, I was walking Rusty through Cedar Park when the world began to spin. My ears started ringing like 1,000 cicadas on a summer night. The green of the grass and blue of the sky swirled together as I felt myself falling. The rough concrete scraped my palms as I tried to catch myself. Everything went black. When I came to, my neighbor Elaine's concerned face was hovering over me, her gardening gloves still on, smelling of earth and roses. "Harold, can you hear me? The ambulance is coming." The paramedics later explained that my blood pressure had dropped to 85/40ths, dangerously low. At the hospital, a young pharmacist named Dr. Rivera finally connected the dots. "Mr. Jenkins," she said, her dark eyes serious behind her glasses, "has anyone ever told you not to eat grapefruit with your medication?" When I shook my head, she sighed. "I see this far too often. That amlodipine you're taking? Grapefruit can increase its concentration in your bloodstream by up to 200%. You are essentially overdosing every morning without realizing it." I wasn't alone in my ignorance. My weekly poker buddy Frank had been experiencing mysterious side effects from his cholesterol medication for months. Muscle pain so severe he could barely climb his stairs. The culprit? The grapefruit juice he drank every day with breakfast. One simple dietary change, and his symptoms disappeared within weeks. Take a moment and think about your own morning routine. Do you enjoy a glass of grapefruit juice or half a grapefruit with breakfast? Are you taking any prescription medications for cholesterol, blood pressure, anxiety, or allergies? If you answered yes to both, you might be creating a dangerous interaction without knowing it. But grapefruit is just the beginning of our story. The second fruit on our dangerous list actually caused my sister-in-law to end up in the emergency room last year, and it's one that doctors rarely warn their patients about. I'll reveal this surprising culprit after I explain exactly which medications are most affected by grapefruit and what safer alternatives you can enjoy instead. Now let's talk about our second dangerous fruit, bananas. Yes, bananas, possibly the most commonly recommended fruit for seniors. Most of us have heard that bananas are nature's perfect food, packed with potassium, easy to digest, gentle on the stomach, and perfect for everything from heart health to muscle cramps. That's what I believe too. In fact, I used to recommend them regularly to my older clients, especially those with high blood pressure, since potassium can help balance sodium levels in the body. But here's what most people don't realize. For seniors taking certain blood pressure medications, particularly ACE inhibitors or potassium-sparing diuretics, bananas can create a dangerous condition called hyperkalemia, or too much potassium in the bloodstream. When potassium levels get too high, it can lead to irregular heartbeat, heart palpitations, and in severe cases, heart attack. I learned this the hard way through my sister-in-law, Martha. At 68, Martha had always been the picture of health, an avid gardener who could put people half her age to shame with her energy. When she was diagnosed with high blood pressure last year, her doctor put her on lisinopril, an ACE inhibitor. No one warned her about food interactions. Martha had read that potassium was good for blood pressure, so she increased her banana consumption to 2 a day. I remember visiting her for Sunday dinner last June. We were sitting on her back porch, the smell of magnolias heavy in the evening air. Martha was unusually quiet, her normally animated face drawn. "I don't feel right, Harold," she said, setting down her iced tea with a shaking hand. "My heart feels like it's doing somersaults, and I'm so tired I can barely get out of bed in the morning." I noticed her hands trembling and the unusual pallor of her skin. "How long has this been going on?" I asked. "About 2 weeks," she admitted. "Ever since I started really focusing on my health. I've been eating better, taking my medication faithfully." When she mentioned the bananas, alarm bells went off in my head. I insisted on taking her to the emergency room immediately. Her potassium level was 6.8 mmol, dangerously above the normal range of 3.5–5.0. The doctor who treated her looked at her medication list and dietary changes and immediately identified the problem. "The combination of your ACE inhibitor and increased potassium intake has created a perfect storm," he explained. "Your medication causes your body to retain potassium instead of excreting it. When you add high potassium foods like bananas to that equation, your levels can rise to dangerous heights." That experience completely changed how I think about healthy foods. I realized that what's healthy for one person can be dangerous for another, especially when medications enter the picture. Now, I'm careful to ask all my friends about their medications before making any dietary suggestions, no matter how innocuous they might seem. If you're taking any of these medications, ACE inhibitors like lisinopril or enalapril, ARBs like losartan, or potassium-sparing diuretics like spironolactone, you need to be extremely cautious with high potassium fruits. Besides bananas, this includes oranges, dried apricots, and kiwis. Instead, opt for lower potassium alternatives like berries, apples, or pears, which give you the benefits of fruit without the potassium overload. Now, I'd love to hear from you. If you've ever experienced an unexpected reaction to a supposedly healthy food, type the word "aware" in the comments below. Your story might help someone else recognize a similar pattern in their own life. And if you're finding this information valuable, please consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. I share new health insights for seniors every week, and I wouldn't want you to miss something that could make a difference in your life. Thank you for staying with me so far. Now let's move on to our third dangerous fruit, one that wreaks havoc on blood sugar levels in a way that few people understand. This revelation came to me through a chance conversation with a diabetes specialist, and it changed how I eat forever. Would you believe that a small handful of raisins contains more sugar than a chocolate chip cookie? This is our third dangerous truth. Dried fruits, often marketed as healthy snacks and natural sweeteners, can be metabolic disasters for seniors dealing with blood sugar issues. For years, I considered dried fruits like raisins, dates, dried apricots, and prunes to be nature's candy, a wholesome alternative to processed sweets. I'd sprinkle raisins on my morning oatmeal, keep dates in my car for a quick energy boost, and regularly recommended dried fruits to my senior clients as a convenient way to get more nutrients. After all, they're just fruits with the water removed, right? How harmful could they be? This misconception was completely shattered during a chance encounter at a health conference in Denver 3 years ago. I was waiting for an elevator when Dr. Amelia Chen, a renowned endocrinologist specializing in geriatric diabetes, stepped up beside me. We started chatting, and when she asked about my breakfast habits, I proudly mentioned my healthy oatmeal topped with raisins and walnuts. Her response stopped me in my tracks. Do you realize that quarter cup of raisins has about 29 grams of sugar? That's like stirring 7 teaspoons of table sugar into your oatmeal. I was dumbfounded. But it's natural sugar, I protested. Dr. Chen smiled patiently. Your pancreas doesn't know the difference. In fact, without the fiber and water content of fresh fruit to slow absorption, dried fruit sugar hits your bloodstream almost as quickly as table sugar. That conversation completely transformed my understanding of what I was putting into my body. When I got home, I started measuring my blood glucose after eating different foods. The spike after my healthy dried fruit snacks was alarming, sometimes higher than when I indulged in actual desserts. This revelation became particularly important when I started working with Walter, a 72-year-old newly diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Walter had been diligently following what he thought was a healthy diet, yet his blood sugar remained stubbornly high. When I visited his home to help assess his eating habits, I found the answer in his pantry, large containers of mixed dried fruit that he snacked on throughout the day. My wife always bought these, he explained, his weathered hands turning over a package of dried apricots. After she passed last year, I kept buying them because they remind me of her. She was always so careful about our health. Walter's eyes, magnified behind thick glasses, looked confused and frustrated as he showed me his daily log of finger prick tests. I don't understand what I'm doing wrong, he said, the papers trembling slightly in his hands. I explained Dr. Chen's insights, and we created a plan to swap the dried fruits for fresh berries, apple slices, and small portions of fruits with lower glycemic impact. Within 3 weeks, Walter's blood sugar readings improved dramatically. At our follow-up meeting, he couldn't stop smiling. I feel like I've gotten my energy back, he told me. I even played 9 holes of golf yesterday, first time in a year. Walter's experience highlights something profound about aging. What worked for us nutritionally at 40 or 50 may not serve us well at 70 or 80. Our metabolism changes, our medication regimens become more complex, and our bodies become less forgiving of dietary miscalculations. Wisdom isn't just about accumulating knowledge, it's about being willing to revise our understanding as new information emerges. When was the last time you questioned a long-held belief about what's healthy for you? Is it possible that some of your trusted dietary habits might be working against you now, even if they served you well for decades? As we move to our 4th dangerous fruit, I want you to prepare for what might be the most surprising revelation yet. This next fruit is one that nearly every doctor and nutritionist recommends without qualification, yet for seniors with certain common conditions, it can trigger painful inflammation that may be misdiagnosed as arthritis or other age-related ailments. My own experience with this fruit led to months of unnecessary suffering before I made the connection. You might be thinking, tomatoes, those aren't even fruits. But botanically speaking, they are indeed fruits, and they're probably the most devastating example of how a superfood can become a source of misery for certain seniors. For most of my life, I was a tomato enthusiast. My small backyard garden in Tennessee always featured at least 4 varieties, from tiny sweet cherries to hefty beefsteaks. I took pride in my homemade marinara sauce, fresh salsa, and the tomato sandwiches that were a summer lunch staple. When health experts started promoting the benefits of lycopene, the antioxidant that gives tomatoes their red color, I felt vindicated in my devotion. Then at 68, I began experiencing joint pain that seemed to come out of nowhere. It started in my fingers, a persistent aching that made my morning crossword puzzle increasingly difficult. The pain spread to my knees, then my shoulders. Simple tasks like buttoning my shirt or opening a jar became exercises in endurance. My doctor diagnosed it as typical age-related osteoarthritis and prescribed anti-inflammatory medication. The pills helped somewhat, but I hated the idea of taking them indefinitely. That's when I decided to try an elimination diet at the suggestion of my massage therapist, Brenda. Food sensitivities change as we age, she said while working on my knotted shoulders. Your body might be trying to tell you something. I was skeptical but desperate enough to try anything. For 3 weeks, I eliminated several common inflammatory foods, including nightshades, the plant family that includes tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, and potatoes. The improvement was so dramatic that I could hardly believe it. The persistent ache in my fingers subsided completely. The stiffness in my knees diminished to the point where I could climb stairs without wincing. When I began reintroducing foods one at a time, the reaction to tomatoes was immediate and unmistakable. Within hours of enjoying a small bowl of pasta with my treasured homemade marinara, the pain returned with a vengeance. My fingers swelled visibly, and the next morning, I could barely make a fist. I repeated the experiment twice more to be certain, varying the serving size and preparation method. Each time, the connection was clear. Tomatoes were triggering an inflammatory response that mimicked arthritis symptoms. For someone with my particular physiology, this health food was anything but healthy. Dr. Kaplan, my rheumatologist, later explained that nightshade sensitivity is particularly common in older adults due to changes in our digestive systems and immune responses. The same compounds that make tomatoes beneficial for some people, alkaloids like solanine, can trigger inflammatory reactions in others, especially those with autoimmune tendencies or certain gut permeability issues that often develop with age. The most poignant validation of this discovery came through my weekly bridge partner, Dorothy. At 82, she had been suffering from what doctors called treatment-resistant rheumatoid arthritis for over a decade. When I hesitantly suggested she might try eliminating nightshades, she was dismissive at first. "Harold, I've tried every medication and supplement under the sun," she said with the weariness of someone who had indeed explored all options. "I doubt a tomato is my problem." But 2 months later, Dorothy arrived at our game empty-handed instead of bringing her usual tomato caprese salad. "You were right," she whispered, showing me her hands. The gnarled fingers I'd become accustomed to seeing were noticeably less swollen. "I haven't felt this good in years." If you've ever experienced unexplained joint pain, inflammation, or digestive issues that doctors have struggled to diagnose, type "inflammation" in the comments below. Your experience might reflect similar food sensitivities that change as we age. And if you're finding value in these revelations, please remember that your comments and engagement help this information reach others who might be suffering unnecessarily. Thank you for your attention as we continue this important conversation. Now, as we approach our 5th dangerous fruit, I need to warn you, this one might be the most controversial yet. It's a fruit that's been elevated to superfood status in recent years, promoted on every health website and morning show. Yet for seniors taking certain blood thinners or dealing with kidney issues, it can create a perfect storm of dangerous interactions. Our 5th dangerous fruit touches on something many of us fear deeply as we age: the loss of control over our health, particularly regarding our heart and the medications that keep it ticking properly. I'm talking about avocados, the darling of nutritionists everywhere, and how they interfered with the medication that was keeping my friend David alive. I've always been somewhat skeptical about food trends, but even I jumped on the avocado bandwagon. Rich in healthy fats, fiber, and potassium, avocados seemed like a miracle food, especially for heart health. When my doctor mentioned my cholesterol numbers were creeping up at age 71, I doubled down on my avocado consumption, adding them to my salads, spreading them on whole grain toast, even blending them into smoothies. Then came that terrifying phone call about David. We'd been friends since college, roommates who had stayed close through marriages, children, grandchildren, and retirement. A retired physicist with a mind sharp as a tack, David had been managing atrial fibrillation for years with the blood thinner warfarin. He was meticulously careful about his medication schedule, never missing a dose. I still remember my wife's face as she handed me the phone that Sunday morning, her eyes wide with worry. "It's David's wife, Carol," she whispered. "He's in the hospital." Carol's voice was thin with fear. "The doctors say his INR levels are all wrong. His blood is way too thick even though he's taking his warfarin exactly as prescribed. He had a small stroke, Harold. They caught it early, but..." Her voice broke. "They're saying his diet might have interfered with his medication." I felt a cold weight in my stomach. Just 3 weeks earlier, I had enthusiastically told David about my new heart-healthy avocado regimen during our weekly walk in the park. Always one to follow sound advice, especially relating to health, David had adopted the habit immediately. What neither of us knew was that avocados are extremely high in vitamin K, the very vitamin that directly antagonizes warfarin's blood-thinning effects. By dramatically increasing his avocado consumption, David had essentially been canceling out his life-saving medication without realizing it. The following week, sitting beside David's hospital bed, watching him struggle to find words due to the small stroke that had affected his speech center, was one of the most humbling experiences of my life. This brilliant man who could once explain quantum physics to a layperson was now searching for the word water. "Don't blame yourself," he managed to say, seeing my expression. "Didn't know." "We should have known," I responded, my voice catching. "That's the problem. We assume doctors and pharmacists tell us everything we need to know, but food interactions often fall through the cracks." The hospital nutritionist who visited later that day changed both our lives. She sat down with us and methodically went through every common food that could affect warfarin. Not just avocados, but green leafy vegetables, cranberry juice, mango, papaya, and even green tea. She explained how these interactions aren't just concerns for people on blood thinners, but also for those taking certain antibiotics, statins, blood pressure medications, and many other drugs commonly prescribed to seniors. "The body is a complex chemistry lab," she explained, her gentle voice belying the seriousness of her message. "Every medication is designed with certain assumptions about the background levels of vitamins, minerals, and compounds in your system. When you significantly change those levels through your diet, you're essentially changing the environment in which that medication was designed to work." David recovered gradually, and within 2 months his speech had returned almost completely to normal. But that experience left an indelible mark on me. It highlighted how vulnerable we become as we age, not just physically, but in the blind trust we often place in medical authorities to protect us from all harm. What keeps me up at night isn't the thought of a sudden heart attack or cancer diagnosis. It's the possibility that I might be unwittingly sabotaging my own health or the health of someone I love through simple ignorance about how the foods I eat interact with the medications that keep me alive. But there's one more fruit that tops them all in terms of danger for seniors, a fruit that combines several risk factors we've discussed and adds one more deadly element that very few people know about. This final revelation was the most shocking to me, and understanding it might be the most important health information you receive this year. Before I share this final crucial revelation with you, I want to pause and thank you for staying with me through these important discussions. Your health matters, and taking the time to educate yourself shows just how much you value your well-being. If you found any of these insights helpful so far, please type "grateful" in the comments below. I read every comment personally, and your feedback helps me understand which health topics are most important to our community. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to our channel and hitting that notification bell. We release new videos every Wednesday focused specifically on health optimization for those of us in our golden years. Now let's move on to our final and perhaps most surprising dangerous fruit, one that nearly ended my neighbor's life last summer and changed how I think about food safety for seniors forever. We've arrived at what I consider the most profound realization of my nutritional journey, a truth that completely transformed how I think about food safety for seniors. This final dangerous fruit isn't inherently harmful like the others we've discussed. Instead, it represents a category of risk that increases dramatically as we age, yet rarely gets mentioned in health discussions: vulnerability to foodborne illness. I'm talking about cantaloupe and other melons with rough, netted rinds, fruits that can harbor dangerous pathogens that younger bodies might fight off easily, but that can be devastating or even fatal to seniors with age-compromised immune systems. This truth hit home in the most personal way last August when my next-door neighbor Josephine was hospitalized with severe listeria infection. At 84, Josephine was the picture of what we all hope to be in our 80s: independent, sharp as a tack, and more active than many people 20 years her junior. She tended her own garden, volunteered at the library twice a week, and rarely missed her daily morning walk. The morning I found her was seared into my memory. I had noticed her newspaper still in the driveway at 10 a.m., something entirely out of character. When she didn't answer my knock, I used the spare key she'd given me years ago, just in case. The stillness of her usually bustling home sent a chill through me. I found her in her bedroom, confused and feverish, unable to stand. "I thought it was just a stomach bug," she whispered, as I helped her to my car, her body frighteningly light against mine, the scent of illness clinging to her skin. "Started after my fruit salad." The ER doctor later confirmed it was listeriosis. a severe foodborne infection particularly dangerous to the elderly, pregnant women, and those with compromised immune systems. The likely culprit? The cantaloupe she had sliced for her breakfast fruit salad 3 days earlier. The bacteria on the rind transferred to the flesh when she cut it, the doctor explained, his young face grave. Her immune system just couldn't fight it off the way a younger person's might. We're seeing more cases like this among seniors. For 2 weeks, I watched Josephine fight for her life in the ICU, her normally animated face slack, the only sounds the mechanical beeping of monitors and the hiss of oxygen. Her daughter Claire flew in from Seattle, hollow-eyed with worry. "Mom always did everything right," Claire said one evening as we shared a silent dinner in the hospital cafeteria. "Exercised, ate healthy, took her vitamins. How could a cantaloupe do this to her?" The turning point came when the infectious disease specialist Dr. Patel sat down with us. "As we age, our immune response diminishes, what we call immunosenescence," she explained. "A pathogen that might cause minor discomfort in a 40-year-old can be life-threatening at 80, and rough-skinned fruits like cantaloupe, with their nooks and crannies, are particularly difficult to clean effectively." When Josephine finally came home after 3 weeks in the hospital, she was changed, weaker, more hesitant, having lost the confidence that had defined her. Sitting on her porch during her first week home, wrapped in a blanket despite the summer heat, she gripped my hand. "You know what the worst part is, Harold?" she said, her voice stronger, but her eyes still haunted. "I've been eating cantaloupe my whole life. No one ever told me it could become dangerous simply because I got older." Her words struck at something fundamental about aging that we rarely discuss. The foods that nourished us our entire lives can become threats simply because our bodies change. The cantaloupe that had been a summer joy for Josephine her entire life had nearly killed her at 84. Not because the fruit had changed, but because she had. This realization completely changed my approach to food safety. I now recognize that seniors need stricter food safety protocols than younger adults, not because we're feeble, but because the consequences of foodborne illness are so much more severe for us. I've learned to avoid pre-cut melons entirely, to wash whole melons with soap and water before cutting, and to consume cut fruit immediately rather than storing it. If you've gained new insight from today's discussion, please type "safeguard" in the comments below. Your engagement helps spread this vital information to others who might be at risk. And if you haven't already subscribed, please consider joining our community of seniors committed to protecting our health and independence through knowledge. Thank you for giving me your time and attention today. These might seem like small details, which fruits to avoid or how to prepare them, but these details can be the difference between hospitalization and health, between independence and dependency, as we navigate our senior years. Now let's bring everything together and talk about how to apply these lessons practically in your daily life. Final thoughts as we wrap up our journey together today. First, I want to acknowledge some important nuance here. The fruits we've discussed, grapefruit, bananas, dried fruits, tomatoes, avocados, and cantaloupe, aren't inherently bad foods. In fact, for many people, especially younger adults without specific health conditions or medication regimens, these foods are exceptionally nutritious. The danger emerges specifically from the intersection of these foods with certain medications, health conditions, and the natural changes that occur in our bodies as we age. When I think back to where I started, that morning standing in my kitchen, knife poised over a grapefruit, I'm struck by how much my understanding has evolved. I began with the simple belief that natural whole foods were universally beneficial. Through personal experience, research, and sometimes painful lessons, I've arrived at a more nuanced understanding. What's healthy isn't universal. It's deeply personal and changes throughout our lives. So how can you apply these lessons practically? Here are the 3 steps I recommend. First, create a comprehensive list of all medications you take, prescription and over-the-counter, and research potential food interactions. Don't rely solely on your doctor or pharmacist to volunteer this information. Ask specific questions like, are there any foods I should avoid while taking this medication? Second, practice heightened food safety, especially with high-risk foods like melons, berries, and pre-cut produce. Remember that your immune system isn't as robust as it once was, and the stakes of foodborne illness are much higher. Third, listen to your body with new attention. Keep a simple food journal if you experience unexplained symptoms like joint pain, digestive issues, or energy fluctuations. Sometimes the connections will surprise you. The deeper lesson I've taken from this journey is that aging well isn't about clinging to the habits and certainties of our younger years. It's about adapting with wisdom and grace to our changing bodies. The strawberry that gave you joy at 40 might give you hives at 70. The avocado toast that was perfect for your daughter might interfere with the medication keeping your heart beating properly. This isn't a tragedy or a surrender. It's simply life's natural evolution. True health isn't found in rigidly following universal rules, but in understanding and honoring your unique body as it is right now, not as it was decades ago or as you wish it would be. If you found value in today's discussion, please help me extend this conversation to others who might benefit. Share this video with someone you care about who's navigating their senior years. Leave a comment with your own experience or questions. And if you haven't already, subscribe to join our community of seniors committed to aging with knowledge, dignity, and joy. Remember, the wisdom to know which fruits to enjoy and which to avoid isn't a restriction on your freedom. It's the very key to maintaining your independence and quality of life for years to come. Thank you for joining me today. Until next time, this is Harold Jenkins wishing you vibrant health and joyful eating. Let me know if you need anything else.